Welcome back. Welcome back. We've had a couple of sessions together, and so you are all familiar with the approach that I'm taking in this course, and you're familiar with the resources that are available for you, the Google Drive, the YouTube channel. You're familiar with the way that I am going to be using Xmind and the way that some of that content is going to be reproduced in the form of Google Slides. But today is going to be the first of a number of presentations of some basic study and IT skills. I think it is a mistake to assume that students have the skills that they need in order to study. And so some of you may be very, very experienced, very, very competent with finding and managing and manipulating data. But my experience is that it is relatively rare, particularly for undergraduate students, to have all of the skills that they need to succeed. Studying is like sport. Every sport involves having fun. The main reason we do sport, it may be for just staying healthy, and you may absolutely hate every minute you exercise, but most people who play sport do so because they enjoy it and they have fun. Now, studying is the same. Most of us study because we enjoy it, and if we don't enjoy it, it's often for reasons that are unnecessary. People play sport because they have fun, but in order for them to have fun, they have to learn individual skills, and they have to learn the rules of the game. How is this like studying? Well, when we study, there are individual skills that we have to learn. So if you're playing football, you have to learn how to kick, you have to learn how to trap, you have to learn how to shoot, you have to learn how to throw in. If you are playing an instrument, you have to learn scales, you have to learn chords, you have to learn a new music. And you bring all of these skills together and you have fun, whether it's sport or music. You learn the individual skills so that you have more fun when you play. It's the same with study skills. There are individual skills you need. You need to learn how to type. You need to learn how to find information. You need to learn how to file that information. You need to learn how to use a number of programs to manage that information and to get what you need out of the information. And so study skills and individual skills for sport are very, very similar. So let's get going with the first topic. Okay, let's just deal with some introductions. The things that I'm going to be presenting are my particular way of doing things. Is it the only way that you can do these things? Absolutely not. There is, as we say in English, there is more than one way to skin a cat. So there is no point in me presenting how to manage data in a way that I don't. These suggestions, these recommendations, ways that I have been doing my own work for well over a decade now. I also need to say that in this presentation, I'm going to be using my Mac. I may, in later presentations, give you some demonstrations from the PC. But this presentation is going to be primarily on Mac. I'll be making mention of a number of programs that you use in PC, and I do realize that most of you students will be using PC and not Mac. So that is another important point. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about general principles, not necessarily the specific operating systems or programs. what are the general principles of creating content, of obtaining content, of filing content, of tagging content, of coding files, of manipulating all sorts of electronic data, PDFs, texts, audios, stills, videos. And as I said, I will be providing some notes on PC equivalence. Okay. Is your computer primarily a toy or is it a tool? Ask yourself that question. Is your mobile phone primarily a toy or is it a tool? Now, I think for most of us, our computers are both. Maybe in the evenings it's a toy primarily, maybe on the weekends it's a toy primarily. But sometimes we need to change the way that we think about the cameras, the phones and the computers we have, and to be thinking, how can I be better at using these sometimes incredibly expensive pieces of equipment as tools. When I see students and when I talk to students about how to do this, that, or the next thing, I am not very good at using my phone, for example. I am a bit backward in that respect. And it is amazing to me when I see my children and some younger students, how incredibly fluent they are in using their phone to use social media, to find music and songs and videos, to use applications in ways that I can't. But when you get them to begin to use their toy as a tool, all of a sudden they realize that they maybe don't have all the skills that they should. So we need to get beyond thinking about our computers as toys. But what does it mean to think about our computers as a tool? Well, one of the first things you need to do is, these are just recommendations. I think that it's very, very important for all of you to identify a computer expert that you can go to deal with sometimes small and inexpensive problems that are going to take you far too much time to do and sometimes do badly. So the first part of thinking about your computer as a tool is to think about getting access to someone who can help you with your problems. Second of all, let's think about doing a bit of a cleanup. Get all that stuff which is not really relevant to your study off your hard drive. Put it onto an external drive that you can use in the evenings and the weekend. You may be lacking storage, or you may be, if you have all these things on your hard drive, you may be tempted to look at them when really during the week, from morning till evening, you need to be thinking about work. So consider cleaning your hard drive up. Some people talk to me and they say, listen, I can't afford a good computer. And they talk to me with a new iPhone and they are driving very, very nice bikes. And I would like to suggest that sometimes we find the money to buy the things that we need. And so money may or may not be a reason that is preventing you from having the equipment that is going to help you in your studies. My encouragement for you is to consider investing at this stage in your life in tools that are going to help you do your job well and to succeed in your studies. Make sure that you back up. There are all sorts of ways that you can back up. The easiest way is for you to buy an external drive, a 500 gig or 1 terabyte external drive, a laptop drive, plug it in, put everything that is important onto your external drive. There are a number of cloud-based services available, and I personally recommend Google Drive, a very, very well developed program. Let's keep moving on. This point is very, very, very important to make. And what I'd like to do is I would like us to pause. And what we're going to do is we're going to go and I will provide you a link to 2 short videos that present how incredibly revolutionary this little thing, indeed this big thing called reading, can do. And so let's watch this together.
Something happened on this ship. We're going to the one place that could have the answer. Come on, Snowy. Here it is. Sir Francis Haddock of Marlinspike Hall, the last captain of the ill-fated Unicorn. The ship set sail from Barbados in 1676 on one of the most ruinous voyages in maritime history. The ship never reached destination, attacked by pirates. All hands lost except for one survivor. When Sir Francis was rescued and returned home, he was convinced his name had been cursed. The Unicorn's manifest stated that it was carrying a cargo of rum and tobacco bound for Europe, but it was long claimed the ship was carrying a secret cargo. What was the ship carrying, Snow? Historians have tried and failed to discover what happened on that fatal voyage. But Sir Francis's last words: only a true Haddock will discover the secret of the Unicorn.
Okay, so this video is from a movie actually produced by a New Zealander. You may or may not have recognised from my accent that I'm a New Zealander. And it shows the hero, the protagonist of this in this movie, this Tintin movie, needing to get some information. And obviously this, from the cars that you saw and the architecture, this was set in Europe, and it was set quite a long time ago when there was no internet. And so at that stage, at that time, even in incredibly developed places, wealthy places like Europe, if you wanted to know something, where did you go? You went to the library. And every library, although every library is different, there are important similarities in any and every library. There are reference works, there are people who are paid to help you find the information that you need. That may mean that they show you which part of the library to go to, or it may mean that they help you to get the book that you need ordered in so that you can give it a read. But this is the place that you went. And in a sense, the old days were a lot easier than these days, when information is everywhere, but maybe finding the information that you need or being sure about the quality of this information is not so easy for you to be sure about. So that was the first little snippet of the importance of reading. And what I'd like to do now is for us to have a look at a second clip. And this is a delightful little clip taken from one of the series of the Game of Thrones, where the young monk, Sam, is telling a story to his companion. And so let's watch this together. These are all on the YouTube channel, by the way.
Black, but the night fort's closest to us. It was the first castle on the wall. The Watch abandoned it during the reign of King Jaehaerys I. Too big, impossible to maintain. Other than Castle Black itself, the Night Fort's the perfect castle for us. It's got a secret sally port, the Black Gate, as old as the wall itself. No one's used it in centuries, most likely. It leads through the wall, right down into the Night Fort, if one knows how to find it, which just so happens I do.
How do you know all that?
I read about it in a very old book.
You know all that from staring at marks on paper?
Yes.
You're like a wizard.
Okay, so what a delightful clip that is. What a delightful clip. How do you know all this stuff? She asks. I read it in a book. So all of that information you can get from marks in a page. And the answer to that is, of course, yes. What an amazing thing reading is. And as I said in our first video, my main objective in this course is to get all of you reading. To get all of you reading by doing a number of things. By, first of all, providing electronic versions of all the material I'd like you to interact with, making that available in the easiest possible way for those of you who have access to this course. The other is to link some of the reading with video presentations by authors and important thinkers, not as a substitute for reading, but to help you get into, to become interested about the topic that I am going to be introducing. So for example, when we talk about research methodology, there's going to be some documentaries which talk about Malinowski and Margaret Mead. And Malinowski, as you'll know, soon anyway, was the person who was credited with making this research method called participant observation. And Margaret Mead's way of doing research in Samoa was criticised as for a number of reasons by her fellow anthropologists. So our main objective, one of the main objectives in this course, is to get you to read. So let's keep going down. Now, remember that you as a Thammasat student have got free access to absolutely everything in the Thammasat University Library. And if you haven't been to the library, and if you haven't gone to a librarian with your laptop and asked them to download the proxy, which will allow you to access ebooks from their website and to access journals from the databases they subscribe to, you need to go and you need to find a librarian, you need to explain what your needs are, and you need to learn how to use these amazing facilities. This is an incredibly important part of anyone laying foundations for a successful time at university. These are some best practices about reading. Sometimes we have to read old books because they are important, and sometimes we read old books because they're classics, or we read old books because they were gravely mistaken, and these days we do things very differently. But generally speaking, one of the first things that I like to do when I'm doing any kind of literature research, which initially involves looking through bibliographies, is to start with the most recent works and to work back from there to the ones that were older. The most recent works contain items in the bibliography that will help me guide myself into the literature. So when you are starting to read, it's most important for you to be reading articles, because articles are often short, condensed versions of big ideas that people have written in a PhD thesis or a 200-page book. So articles, journal articles come out more regularly. Journal articles are shorter, sometimes as short as 10 or 12 pages. They are condensed. You should be emphasizing reading articles over books. They are hot off the press. They contain bibliographies. These are just two of the reasons why they are important. Books, they come in lots of shapes and sizes. And if you take the time to go to the Google Drive, and there will be a link in every video in this series, there will be links to the Google Drive and to the YouTube channel, which will allow you to have access to all this reading. There are a number of types of books. There are edited volumes, a book containing chapters written by different authors, but edited by someone. There are monographs, which is a 150 to 300 page book written by one person with a particular argument or story that they want to tell. That is called a monograph. And then arguably some of my most favorite types of books are reference books. Now, using Wikipedia is fine if you're wanting to have a very brief introduction to concepts and people. No problem with going to Wikipedia to find out how to pronounce a word, but you can't cite Wikipedia in your papers, in your theses. What you need to do is you need to have a collection of reference works that help you get to grips with important concepts. We're going to be dealing with research methods, specifically ethnographic research methods, in the area of ethnic studies, and you'll be directed to a number of reference works that deal with those. I've mentioned before that I'm preparing a series of course readers which will provide in one file, one PDF file, a collection of different articles, book chapters, and encyclopedia and dictionary entries on specific topics. So that is the section on reading. The difference between an animated, engaged, successful student and one that might pass but is frustrated and relieved when the course is over is often the different attitudes to the important task of reading. I cannot emphasize this point more. I'm going to be experimenting with providing audio versions of books to help you read them, and I'm linking YouTube videos with books that I'm wanting you to read in order for you to get an idea of the importance of this person and his or her ideas. But that's enough about reading. Why don't we wrap it up now? And I hope to see you soon in this next series on study and IT skills. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.